Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a thunderstorm event over parts of the south central United States. That's going to be moving into the Tennessee Valley and then eventually into the Ohio Valley in the northeast. This is probably going to be one of your first severe weather events over those areas in the northeast and the Ohio Valley as well. It won't be a huge event for those areas, but you'll definitely see a little bit of severe weather. We're going to be covering what factors are there that could aid some of the thunderstorms and what really isn't there to support thunderstorms. One of the things that we do have is an ample amount of energy and moisture, but we really don't have the ample amount of dew points to support some of these thunderstorms in many of these areas. So we're going to be covering all of that and more in today's video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. Here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. It is fairly quiet over the eastern half of the country. The western half of the country is where we have all the weather really going on right now. We have winter weather advisories up for parts of the northwest, as well as for a little bit of New Mexico and Colorado, where we even have a few winter storm warnings up. Frost advisories and freeze warnings up for northwestern California, as well as some wind advisories in effect for southern California, southern Nevada, and scattered throughout parts of Texas as well. Red flag warnings in effect for southwestern Texas, southern New Mexico, and southeastern Arizona, with some high wind warnings in effect for southwestern Texas and southeastern New Mexico as well. Yesterday, we had a high temperature over the entire continental United States in Rio Grande Village, Texas, where they got to 93 degrees Fahrenheit. The low temperature for the continental United States was in Copper Basin, Idaho, where they got to -2 degrees Fahrenheit. Near Ely, Nevada, that's where they got 1.2 inches of rainfall or precipitation yesterday, likely in the form of melted snowfall, actually, because that was taken on a higher elevation area. But either way, they got 1.2 inches of reported precipitation, and that should definitely help with the drought issues that they're seeing over those areas. They saw a little storm move through. It dumped quite a bit of snow, especially out there in Utah. That's where they got the heavier amounts, and you can see that on the high snowfall report yesterday. That was in Alta, Utah, where they got 23 inches of snowfall. The higher elevations, they got closer to 20 inches or more of snowfall, but you go down close to Salt Lake City, some of the lower lying areas, that's where they only got 1 to maybe 4 inches at most as you get a little bit higher up in elevation. So it was definitely a very elevation dependent storm that we saw yesterday. Here's what the Storm Prediction Center is showing, and we're going to kind of move through this and just give you a general idea of what the Storm Prediction Center is expecting and what you should also be expecting. So this is for today. We have a slight risk of severe weather in that yellow. That's for northern Texas and southern Oklahoma. So in between Dallas and Oklahoma City is where we have that slight risk of severe weather. If we go to tomorrow, you can see that we have a large general risk, but we only have a tiny area of marginal risk, which is in that dark green, and that's for southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi. But you can see that entire kind of arm of general risk goes all the way up to areas in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, northern Iowa, eastern Nebraska. So it's definitely getting way up there, and that's actually all because of that winter storm, which is heading from the Rockies into the Midwest and that general area, and is actually going to be giving a little bit of snow to these areas to the north. But of course, on the southern end, it's also pulling in a bunch of warm, moist air from the south, and that's what's going to allow a few thunderstorms. Definitely nothing that's going to spawn a tornado, most likely, up in those areas. It's not going to be one of those types of events. Probably either just a line of storms or just some scattered heavy rainfall downpours in some of these areas. So this would be by Wednesday, so the day after, and you can see we still only have a marginal risk at the height for parts of southern Mississippi, much of Louisiana, and into southeastern Texas. But you can see that that huge area of general risk, which spans all the way from the Gulf Coast up to the Canadian border and the Great Lakes. So we definitely have a general thunderstorm risk that's going all the way to the north, and we have at least some threat of thunderstorms in those areas. And then on the day 4 outlook, they have a slight risk or a 15% chance of severe weather in parts of eastern Texas, southern Arkansas, the entire state of Louisiana, pretty much all of Mississippi, and western and central Alabama as well as the western panhandle of Florida. But if you were to look at if this was a day 1 to 3 outlook, I would assume they would probably have a marginal risk that would go up somewhat kind of like this through parts of the Tennessee Valley. They might even extend that into the northeast, because we're seeing some elevated levels of energy according to some of the models. So let's actually look at some of the models and see what they're showing for this severe weather event, because they are showing actually a fairly robust area of severe thunderstorms. And this would be what the RGEM model is showing, which is the regional Canadian model, and we're looking at just some scattered pop-up thunderstorms up for parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and into Kansas as well. If we continue through Monday into the evening hours, this is when we get a line of storms to kind of develop right here. So to really understand what's happening, we have a high pressure which is all the way to the north. So your high pressure is all the way up here. We really aren't dealing with the effects of that too much. We also have another one which is back through here. So we have another high pressure up here. That's going to funnel this system right here. And by the way, your system is right back down through here. And so this system is pulling in a bunch of energy on the eastern side, and I'll actually draw that in green because we're dealing with a lot of warm, moist air coming out of the south, and then we're dealing with a lot of cold, dry air being funneled in on the western end of this. So that's a very dynamic low-pressure system. We have warm air rising from the south, cold air dipping down from the north, and especially on the western side of there is where we're dealing with the cold air, and the boundary of those two areas, which is in this case right over here, is where you're going to end up dealing with the severe thunderstorms setting up. So for north central Texas, we have that line of fairly strong thunderstorms, and then as we move this forward, this would be by Tuesday early in the morning. So we're dealing with probably 12 a.m., 1 a.m. tonight. We're dealing with that line of storms moving into northeastern Texas, and you can see that we're actually getting more of that dry air into the eastern side of the system. So this kind of pocket right in here is where we're actually dealing with dry air and flowing in from the west and from the north as well. And then you can see the storm system kind of goes along that curve, and that's where we're dealing with more warm air being pulled in as well. So it's a very dynamic, interesting system to look at on some of these models, and you can definitely learn a few things when you're looking at this. This is one of those textbook type of cyclones that you do want to kind of look at a little bit more, and it can give you a better idea of how this is actually going to play out. This would be by Tuesday morning. That line of storms is moving closer to the Mississippi River by this point, into Louisiana, western Mississippi, a little bit of Arkansas as well. Then, if we continue this further into the southeast, you can see that line of storms heads into southern Mississippi, southern parts of Louisiana. It does break up after that, so then you can see if we zoom in, because we actually have some thunderstorms rolling through this area, but if we zoom out a little bit, you can see that this line of storms really broke apart according to this model. Some models have it kind of sustaining, but most of them have it breaking apart by Tuesday night. So this would be by Wednesday early in the morning. We're dealing with this system all the way up here, but watch what's happening out here. You can't see it on your screen right now, but this is another system that's going to be pulled out and then move up to the north. So we have your first wave that's going up. So this is your first one right here, and then here would be your second one down there. That's going to be moving to the north as well. We're going to be dealing with, again, more of that warm, moist air being pulled up from the south, cold, dry air being pulled in from the west and north, and again, that intersection of those two areas is where you're going to be dealing with the most intense severe weather out of this event. So this will be by Wednesday early in the afternoon through Wednesday into the evening hours, Thursday in the early morning. So again, right around 12, 1, 2 a.m. Is when we're dealing with these thunderstorms starting to again move through parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Your low pressure is centered somewhere over here, kind of dislocated by this point. But again, this is going to be rising up further to the north, and on that eastern end of this, which cover which would cover this entire area right here, that's where we're going to potentially have the threat of severe weather. I think as you get into the southern Appalachians eastward, so basically for this area, you're probably going to miss out on most of the severe weather. You might still get hit by a little bit of rain showers, but I think you're going to start to miss out on the severe weather as you head basically east of the Appalachians in the southern Appalachians. The areas that are east of the Appalachians further to the north, so anywhere through here, are still most likely going to get a little bit of thunderstorm activity at least. If we go through Thursday morning, so this is March 25th by this point, we're dealing with thunderstorms moving through parts of the Tennessee Valley. That system continues to pull away to the north. Again, we're dealing with potentially a fairly strong line of storms moving throughout this area. This would be by Friday, and unfortunately, we have to go to the GFS model, which is a little bit lower resolution, and this is the last frame that is currently available to me because the model is still loading in, so we won't be able to get the full picture of what may happen, but you can kind of get a general idea of what you think will happen. We're going to see this arm of moisture pull away to the north, so probably by Friday in the early afternoon, areas in central Michigan would start to get impacted with that line of storms, and you would also most likely see this area pull away further to the east. So if you live anywhere along the Atlantic seaboard, you might start to get impacted by that also Friday early in the morning, and that system would continue to head further to the north and to the east. So unfortunately, again, we don't have the other frames of that model just because it's currently being outputted, and we don't. And as of when I'm recording this, you might be able to get it after I'm recording this, after the video is released. But as of when I'm recording it, unfortunately, we don't have those maps generated just yet. So let's move on to the CAPE, which is the convective available potential energy, which is the energy in the atmosphere. You typically want to be above a 500, which is that kind of solid blue color. And once you get above the 1,000 mark, that's where you're dealing with fairly decent severe weather. To give you an idea, you only really need a 1,500 to 2,000 to get a big severe weather outbreak. The Alabama, Mississippi severe weather outbreak operated under 2,000 to 3,000 CAPE. So not a huge amount of CAPE, but still you saw quite a bit of thunderstorm and tornado activity over those areas. Not saying that we're going to see that today and with the upcoming severe weather, but just to kind of give you an idea of how little energy is really needed to create a thunderstorm that could cause some damage. So this would be by Tuesday morning. You can see the main energy moving into Texas, Louisiana. It's going to kind of create a front right through here. As that line of storms, if you were to look at the radar image, you would see that line of storms right through here. The low pressure is back through here, so you're still dealing with a general cold front through eastern Missouri. And on the northern side, or on the eastern side actually, is where we're dealing with most of that energy kind of being spun into the system just like this. So we have some low CAPE values all the way up to parts of Wisconsin and Iowa, and then through Wednesday morning, you can see that the area of CAPE and energy really dies out. By this point, we have a weak frontal system back through there, but it's really centered back through parts of the Gulf states, especially the western Gulf states. And then if we move through Wednesday into Thursday morning, this is when your next system is starting to come up from parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas area, and then start to move into the Great Lakes and the Northeast in that general area. So it's starting to move further to the north and to the east. It's pulling in a lot more energy. Look at these very high CAPE values, over 1,000 for parts of Louisiana, eastern Texas. So we have definitely ample CAPE over the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to be just pulled up from this system. So this is by Thursday night, Friday morning. We're dealing with that low pressure. You can tell it's right over here just by where the CAPE is kind of set up. We have some elevated areas of CAPE on the eastern and northern side of this, and that's going to continue to pull away further to the north. And you can see that by this point we have that low pressure all the way up near Lake Ontario. And that's going to be, again, continuing to pull away further to the east. But we have that line and that kind of cold front area right through here. We have a warm front, which would be located right over here. And that's how your system is kind of developing. We have that warm, humid air being pulled up from areas further to the south. So it's being pulled up right through here. And that's what's allowing these very high CAPE values. And for this area, for the East Coast, at least for this time of year, having CAPE values of 500 to 700 150 is actually rare and fairly high. So not saying that we're going to have anything really significant. You would want to see higher energy values, but definitely we want to keep an eye out for this because we do have at least some decent potential of that occurring. If we look at the high temperatures, we also have very warm temperatures for this time of year, 15 plus degrees above normal. Here's for today. Your high temperatures in the severe weather is mainly going to be centered right down through here. So your high temperatures over that area generally going to be in the upper 50s to the mid 60s over a lot of those areas. Not too impressive for that area, but then it's really as we get into Tuesday, which would be tomorrow, when we're dealing with more of those warmer temperatures spreading all the way up into the Great Lakes. So you can see all those warmer temperatures through Tuesday. Here's by Wednesday, really heating up for parts of the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, all through the central area of the country. And this would be by Wednesday, and we're dealing with mid 70s all the way up into parts of northern Ohio, eastern parts of Michigan, all through parts of the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes. So very, very warm temperatures. And then for Thursday, when your main severe weather is going to be located for parts of Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, Western Virginia, that general area right there, for Thursday, the day that you're going to be seeing most of that severe weather, look at this. We have temperatures in the upper 70s, maybe even a few 80s trying to crawl in. And then here would be by Friday, where you're still dealing with potentially the threat of some storms, and we have 80s scooting up the East Coast into parts of the Atlantic seaboard, and then we have mid and upper 70s all the way up into upstate New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and areas further to the south of there. So very, very warm temperatures that could definitely inhibit some severe weather. And we want to watch out for that. Now, I did look at the dew points, and they're really not too impressive. Now, they are fairly high. They're in the upper 50s and mid 50s, especially as you get into the northeast, where we have a little bit cooler, drier air than in the Ohio Valley. So for this area right here, I'm not too impressed with the dew points. And if that's the one area of the severe weather event that I'm not too impressed with, is how much moisture is being pulled up. I think we have a decent amount of moisture necessarily, but we have a lack of dew point, of high dew points. So we don't have any dew points really that are above 60 until you get back through Kentucky, Virginia, areas further south of there. So I would want to see that push up to the north for me to really say that this is going to be some sort of outbreak over this part of the country. If you live into the Tennessee Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the southern United States, you have dew points in the mid 60s. So there's a sharp cutoff line, and for those areas, I think you might see a bit of a severe weather outbreak. You get further to the north, and that's where I'm not too impressed with the dew points as of right now. But the models have definitely shifted to a more aggressive stance overnight, and who knows, we could see that happen again. We're still 4 to 5 days out from the severe weather event, and we do want to take everything with a grain of salt. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.